Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League. It's a show where three rugby league tragics are talking everything rugby league on your way to or from work. I'm Graham.
And I am the chameleon.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Yes, it's Tuesday, and you know what that means. We've got another episode of Carpool Rugby League coming your way. This is I suppose we'd call it a Pacific Cup edition, Griffo. We've got the Pacific Cup final coming up on the weekend. We also have the Pacific Bowl match on the weekend, the final there. So there's still plenty of rugby league happening in rugby league land at the moment. Plenty of news in the off-season here with signings happening here, there and everywhere. And obviously the big November 1 signing deadline date tomorrow. How's the off-season treating you, mate?
Yeah, well, it's not my favorite time of year. Even though, we've got some rugby league, a little bit of content. I mean, it's better than nothing, but yeah, I don't like the off season. But I guess being realistic, guys need a rest, recharge the batteries, and then we start to wind up again around February, which is not all that far away because tomorrow's November.
Yeah, that's right. And usually around the start of November, this is where the teams that didn't make the finals actually start to go back to training. Is usually around the start of November. So they usually try to get in, a good
West Tigers.
Yeah, they should be at Concord tomorrow. If not,
Center of Excellence.
Center
of Hope. Center of
Hope. The Center of Hope. Hopefully they've gotten back into training. But there's lots of news in the off season. There's plenty going on. This is also another time of year where this is one thing I forgot to discuss off air. But another good part of the off season, I don't mind having a look at the changes that you sometimes get with the NRL teams and their jerseys and logos. And one of the I suppose teams it made me think of it there with the Tigers, because in the past we talked about their logo changes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen this, Griffo. I think you know where I'm heading here with the Manly Seagulls. Bit of a change in logo and branding for next year.
Its wings clipped.
It's had its wings clipped. Do you know what it reminds me of? Have you ever played that game or seen that game on the mobile phone, the Angry Birds? It looks like an angry...
Yeah, some years ago.
It looks like an angry bird to me. So, look, the Seagulls possibly looking for a bit of revenge. But, this time of year we see these types of things. So they're looking for a new piece of branding.
I don't like it. That's just me. I'm old school.
It's not. It's very modern. How do you think? I mean, I know we're talking on behalf of a group here, but we're seeing a lot of the modernising of some of these logos, and I know it's moving with the times. But there is something to be said for a traditional logo, isn't there?
Well, Graham, the most traditional logo is the leaping rabbit. That's a good logo.
True. Yes.
I like the panther, the leaping panther. Yep. No words. You just know that's the Panthers. That's the Rabbitohs.
I suppose it's a leaping dolphin.
I think
they got it right, just having the dolphin.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have a name, so they're just the Dolphins. Nothing else anyway.
There's nothing to write underneath it anyway.
Oh look, Manly are trying to do something, I guess. It can't be as bad as the last time they tried to change something when they stuck a rainbow in somewhere and that went down not very well. Look, bottom line, Manly supporters, if their team wins, they're not going to care what the logo looks like.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And look, the branding in the NRL, I actually think there's another big thing that we're seeing now when it comes to branding, and not only selling the clubs themselves, but selling the game. I'm not sure either if you've seen some of the pictures online of some of the advertisements in Las Vegas that
A little bit. I've seen a little bit, not a lot, but
Yeah, but it's great to see that there's that picture there. Australia's biggest game coming. I know there was a
yeah.
bit of talk from the AFL. They didn't like it, but I mean, if you're
Who
the
cares?
NRL, you're not going to say,
What are you
"Oh,
going to say? Yeah,
we're
oh,
the second
Australia's
biggest game."
smallest game. You're going to advertise like that?
Oh, it's unbelievable. But what we're hearing, because that Las Vegas game, really, that's the next game for points that we're going to see.
Yeah.
Um, well, we've got the Manly Seagulls taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs, the Roosters taking on the Brisbane Broncos. Just want to get your thoughts before we talk about some of the sign news and the footage going on now. Just your thoughts on what you think we might see over the off season. I know obviously there'll be some hype hopefully and some promotion in America. What do you think it's going to be like back home here? Do you think there's going to be a lot of hype to try and draw in some attention, not only from the American audience, but the Australian audience that, may not necessarily always be rugby league fans to get some more eyeballs on this also here in Australia?
No, look, I applaud um, the NRL and Peter V'landis in having a dig. Like, I'm excited about it, and my team's not even playing. Um, had my team have been playing, I would have been on a plane to Las Vegas. Um, yeah, I think it's great. In 2023, you can't be stagnant. Um, Sport is a business, and you really need to expand your business. And the Australian market's only so big, and the reality is the NRL is only really part of the Australian market. So I think it's a good thing. It's about making money ultimately, and to make money, you've got to widen your net. And the biggest sporting market in the world happens to be in the United States.
Correct.
So the NRL's trying to get in there, some sort of foothold. Not trying to take over from anyone else,
No.
but just trying to say, look, we have got a product here that may be of interest to you. In particular, I guess NFL supporters. It's taking place the weekend after the Super Bowl, I believe. NFL is only a very short season in terms of the time of the year that it covers. Um, if they got 1% of NFL supporters' eyeballs on rugby league, that's a lot of people. And obviously they're aiming for more than that, but um, we know it's a great game, but only a small part of the world really knows about rugby league.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and the biggest competitor for rugby league globally is rugby union. And that's about all I'll mention about that other sport because I've no interest in it. But it is much more of a global sport. And the thing that sickens me whenever I hear it, and I did hear it, you normally hear it from people from Melbourne, but I did hear it from someone from the United States talking about rugby
Yes.
in relation to our game. I think we need to drop that term. Just call it league or just call it NRL because we're not rugby. Rugby is a different game and it's a popular game with many, not with me, but everyone's different. But yeah, I think they need to ram home the brand that is NRL. They don't need to know what the letters stand for. A lot of people wouldn't know what the NFL stands for. They just know it's NFL. The AFL is AFL. That's the letters.
Mm.
And that's how it is. it's a brand. So yeah, don't talk about rugby. Because people, if they hear rugby league, they're going to focus on that first word. Just call it NRL.
Yep.
So um,
Yep.
but I'm excited
It's
about it.
and just to say in there, a lot of people talk about gridiron, American football, NFL. These
Hmm,
these these leagues, these acronyms for the leagues have become the names for the game in a sense. So I don't
yeah,
think
the
you're too
EPL,
far off there.
right? That's how the big sports they brand themselves by, generally three letters.
Yep.
The NBL, the NBA,
NBA.
um,
Yep.
the big,
NHL,
yeah,
so on and so
yeah,
forth. You can keep
exactly,
going.
exactly.
So
So
yeah,
there's three letters, NRL, Australia's biggest sport. Um, well, may not be, but if it keeps doing things like this, it will be.
yep.
That's
And
that's the key.
the product's
Oh,
good.
exactly, and it's
Yep.
important that the four teams that do um, play those games really do play rugby league, near its best. Because
Yep.
anyone who watches it and hasn't seen it before, if you're going to see rugby league at even near its best, you're going to think, yeah, I like that. I'm going to I'm going to tune in. I want to see some more of that, and that's what the NRL is trying to do.
Yep.
Get eyes on the game, um, and I can only applaud them for that. So
Yep.
I hope all four teams really do put on a great display of. And I'm biased, of course I am, but I'm a rugby league man. I make no apologies for that. I respect other sports, and they have their followers, and those followers think they got the best sport, and to them it is, and that's okay. But yeah, rugby league, not trying to say, right, we're going to be the biggest sport in the United States. We just want a foothold because we do get a foothold there. The revenue that then can generate can be used for two reasons. Well, one, to grow the game here, and two, obviously, to expand the game further on the international scene, and that's important. Um, that's something the AFL don't have. Um, and they were innovative a few years ago. They took a game to China. I don't know if it was a success or not, but they had a crack. I've got to applaud them for that. Um, but yeah, I think if you're looking to crack a market open, the biggest market in the world is the one you probably want to get into.
Mm.
And hats off to the NRL and Peter Volandis for making it happen.
Yeah, and the latest news just on that, from what we're hearing of, I mean, this is courtesy of Zero Tackle. They're reporting that the games will take place Saturday evening in the US, with the Rabbitohs Manly being the first game, and then the Roosters Brisbane Broncos being the second game. What they're reporting, what we're hearing, is that it would likely line up that would be sort of your 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock equivalent games on a Sunday
All right.
afternoon for us here.
Oh wow. No, that's
Um,
perfect. Yeah.
so that's the way they're trying to work it out. Whether those timings are exact or not is yet to be confirmed. But it'll be a
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon football here, and there's also talk here with Fox League apparently have been they've basically been marketing through their, what does it say, to their recent industry up front, that the Rabbitohs Seagulls game would be exclusive and live to Fox League, which would
Right.
suggest that would be the first game of the afternoon, and then
Yep.
a
Yep.
possible simulcast with Channel 9 for the Sunday
Yep.
afternoon game, main game being the Roosters and Broncos. Same article, interestingly enough, I don't know if I missed this when it all came out, but they're also reporting here that they're hearing that it's believed to be a 5-year deal with Las
Yes,
Vegas
that's
that
right.
would see every club in the
Every
game
club. Yeah.
go at least once.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. And we're also seeing too here, it would be the first time in very long time that we're not seeing an Australian primetime season opener. And also, too, this would be almost like a split round in a sense where
It is,
these
yeah.
two games
Round
would happen on
zero,
one week
essentially.
and then the next week. So we're going to get a lot more information on this. So that'd be March 3 our time, with the rest of round one being played between March 7 and 10. And we're hearing, as always, that the draw would probably be out by the end of this month. So that's something else to keep an eye on, because by the end of this month, we might be able to do a bit of analysis to see, what the draw looks like for each team, because we know, as we saw last year, that it can have a bit of an impact in a sense of, we saw at the end of last year, some teams, their stock was a little bit inflated based on who they played and when they played.
Yeah.
So
I
definitely
really,
watch
I
this
don't
space.
expect, Graham, that we're going to see a much better draw, but I really hope that they've had a look and just try to make it a bit fairer. But yeah, we can't be judgmental until it actually comes out. But my guess, Sharks get a rails run, Raiders get a rails run, and there's about half a dozen teams that play each other that will wish they didn't. But
And
anyway,
you'd imagine some football in Brisbane on a Friday night.
I think you might see the odd game. But in fairness,
Look,
at least they're deserving of that top billing now, because
they're
they are
playing good
a
football
very
and it's a big
strong side.
market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, the only thing that can really strengthen teams at this time of year, is the change in their roster and the signings. Just today, we heard a little bit of news coming out of South Sydney. Jai Arrow extended his contract to the end of 2027. South Sydney also signing Sean Kepi on a 3-year deal from the Seagulls in recent weeks. They're looking to, I suppose, get some longevity in that forward pack there, especially with, some of the forwards like...
Was it Harmony
Yeah.
Sally that no? Yeah.
Yeah, he's got, and also too, when you got the likes of Burgess, you got some players there that they really wanted to, I think, build up that forward pack there. So they need something. In other news, we often talk also too about your club, Griffo, the Panthers. A lot of young players coming out of the Penrith Panthers. Whilst a lot of the signing news and speculation, I think the airways and the news outlets are going to be talking a lot about Jerome Luai and what's going on there. A young Panther who played some first grade this year, Tom Jenkins, he's gone to the Knights. So that's not a bad move for him, considering, Dom Young's off to the Roosters. So, he's probably a depth signing at this stage, but it's not a bad club, I suppose, to be affiliated with, to look at some opportunities there.
Oh, a good player. Good. I'm sorry to see him leave, but I do understand. Yeah, good luck to him. Good addition for the Knights. He may not be in their initial top 17, but I'm very confident that he will play NRL for the Knights at some stage. He's been with the Panthers for quite a few years, played all the junior rep sides. He's a country boy, and he filled in. I'd say he probably played 5 or 6 games this year, maybe a bit more. And he did a good job. He's a good finisher. He's good in the air. Reasonable speed. Yeah, solid player, and definitely an NRL player. So I wish him well.
Yeah, other news we're hearing, Jordan McLean. He's another bloke here who, he's been around a long time. He's, I think, 32. He's agreed to a 1-year extension at the Cowboys. There was he didn't have a contract up until recently, but he's another player too, without talking too much about the signing. I mean, obviously a good signing for the Cowboys, but he's another player that we probably don't talk about enough as being a veteran of the game, being a really good player over the past 10 years.
Yeah. I think he was in a premiership winning Storm side at some. He's certainly
He would have been, yeah.
Came to prominence with the Storm. I would imagine they were winning reasonably regularly. I think he might have clocked up a premiership somewhere along the line. He's played for his country. He got selected for the Blues and then got injured in training. I think he did a hamstring. He's had ongoing hamstring problems. I don't know if he ever actually represented the Blues or not, but yeah, good player. They've got a lot of back rowers as well. They've got to try and fit into their salary cap jigsaw puzzle. The Cowboys, and then of course they've got Jason Taumalolo with still about 4 years of his $1 million a year contract to go. So, it's good signing for he's been good for him. When he has had his injury issues, but when fit and well, he's been very solid.
The one that really caught my eye of the signings in the last week or so was Josh Curran to the Bulldogs. I think he's another player who, for the Warriors, has been really good in the games that he's played. It's always a bit of a gamble though going to the Bulldogs. We always talk in the off season about the signings they make, and then we tend to talk about during the season how disappointed we are in them. But they've made this signing, and I think for them, Josh Curran, I think he's a good footballer.
Definitely a good footballer.
Interesting move from him though.
Yeah. Well, he's a Western Sydney boy. May have grown up around the Marylands area. He's a Patrician Brothers Blacktown ex-student. So he's coming home, really. He's a good player. He's got a lot of skill. Good addition for them. They really are a revolving door, though. They've lost some players who are on big dollars. Guys like Thompson's going back to the UK. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of some other guys that were on big money there that they've let go. There's been a few. They pay big money and they let go players who've been on big contracts. So,
I'm just looking at the losses here for the Bulldogs. Avarillo, Pengai Jr.
Well, there's a classic example of a guy who was on big money, and
Waddell,
so it frees up salary cap space.
Yeah.
Flanagan apparently was on quite significant money. Mentioned Luke Thompson. Corey Waddell wouldn't have been on big money, but Avarillo, good player, local junior.
He's off to
Dogs
the
fans
Dolphins.
being a bit disappointed, yeah.
But they've got. Yeah, I was going to say they've got some players coming in though. The big unknown, I suppose, coming in for them is Bronson Sherry. Been a number of years since we've seen him play football.
Yeah,
had a lot of promise before, obviously that lengthy ban. We don't. I don't think we need to go around the block again and talk about how good Stephen Crichton is. I mean, we talked about it.
Not as a 5'8" though, Graham. I don't know if you saw the Samoa games, but
yeah. But look, as I said in the archives, go back to the last episode. We talked about him being the best centre in the world. If he's playing,
and that he is. Play him in the centres.
Yep.
Serraldo.
And they've got some depth there with the likes of Blake Taff, Jamin Salmon.
Blake Taff is better than depth, Graham. He should be their number one. He is a very good player, and the Souths just didn't use him well, I got to say.
Yeah.
Very good player. I know Shano's a massive rap on him. And Cameron Serraldo knows a lot more about rugby league than I ever will, but there's your number one, Taff. Crichton in the centres.
Burton 5'8".
Yeah. You got Burton. They need a half. They got the sex bombs there. So I think, whether Sherry comes through. I mean, he is a centre as well. And they've got they re-signed Jacob Kiraz and the winger Blake Wilson as well. So they're extended. They've got the makings of a good team, but it really comes down to what the seven can do for them. Um, and we've seen that teams that don't have a good number seven generally don't become very successful.
Definitely,
So
it's such a big
yeah,
part of the team, big part of the squad. Um, and yeah, I mean, and for those who have heard things in the media and wondering, they've basically poured water on the rumours that Addo Carr may be going
yeah,
elsewhere. There's a lot of talk this time last week that Parramatta were looking to make a bid for him. Phil Gould's come out and said, well, he's under contract and we're not letting him go. So I suppose that's the end of that
yeah.
one. So
Well, they're all under contract, but
yeah,
Sean
that's true.
Kepi
I think I
was
think
on a 3-year
I
contract.
think Curran was under contract too, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah, yeah. So if it suits
Um,
people, contract doesn't matter.
no, they're not worth much.
The other problem, sorry, Graham, to interrupt
Yeah,
there, but Carl Olawapu, who was a young guy, big signing, signed on big money from the Broncos, ostensibly as a half.
yep.
He's looking at being out for the whole year. He had either a neck or a back injury.
It's bad
Potentially, they
luck,
were
isn't it?
talking about career threatening,
Oh
but
goodness.
it looks like he's at least out all of next year. So that's very serious. Fortunately for the young man, he was signed on, I think, quite a longish deal.
Yeah, to the end of
At
2026.
no, there you go, at pretty good money, well, very good money for a guy who had, at the time, not played any NRL. So wish him all the best. But it seems as though he was developing along the lines more of a lock than a half. But massive raps on him. But yeah, really unfortunate for him and for the club that he looks like missing the whole of 2024.
Another player who has really earned a contract, that's Phoenix Crossland. Through
Yeah,
that Knights run, he had a really good year and he's still quite young. I think he's only about 23 years old, but the Knights have rewarded him with a contract through to the end of 2026.
deservedly so.
Um, and, it would have been Jaden Brayley he would have come in for, who had
Yeah,
that injury. And, all of a sudden he just became a mainstay in that side. So I think that's very well deserved as well.
absolutely. And it creates a good selection headache as to, well, does Brayley come back in as the hooker? Because Crossland stamped himself as a high quality hooker. Best known as a guy in the halves. Never really cemented a 6 or 7 jersey. Played his best NRL football at 9. Maybe he becomes the 14, or maybe Brayley becomes the 14.
Yeah.
But a good, with the other throw in there to the mix, Jack Cogger,
Yes.
who was outstanding for the Panthers, in particular in the grand final. Where do they play him? Where does he fit in that mix with Hastings, Tyson Gamble? Um, good, good problems to have there for the Knights. Better to have too many than not enough.
And because there are some clubs that have lost players in certain positions, and the Canberra Raiders, they're one that comes to mind.
Absolutely.
Their back line, obviously, with Jack Whiten going, Matt Frawley's leaving, Jared Croker's retired. So there's a bit of room to fill in that back line, and they're
Yeah.
trying to fill that void with young KO
KO
Weeks.
Sports. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
KO Weeks. Yeah.
KO Sports. Yeah, so there's a sponsorship opportunity there for sure.
Yeah.
There's an ad, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
if they need something where rather than having a free month of KO, they need KO weeks where you have a free
Yeah.
week of KO Sports, And
If he has a
Canberra
big
can jump on
game,
that.
yeah, everyone
It's
everyone
KO
can get
week.
KO for a week.
Yeah, you get a week free KO. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean he's another young player. I mean he was at the Sea Eagles, and I'd imagine when I saw that signing, I saw the release from Canberra, and I thought it was very interesting where they were talking about him as being a versatile player in the back line, and there's a quote even from him saying he can play a few positions, but so on and so forth. So they're really selling it to their fans and members as
yeah.
a versatile signing, and it's they're going to be looking at where he fits best into this back line to try and to fill some of those holes.
The other guy, long term halfback, is Ethan Sanders.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if he's not going there till the following year. I did hear that somewhere that he's an excellent halfback with a fantastic kicking game. He played junior
I saw him in
blues.
the Origin, yeah.
Yeah, really
Because
good
is he
talent.
currently at Parramatta? Would he be? Is
Parramatta,
it?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Parramatta. But and I know the Raiders signed him, but I think it might not be till 2025. Um, so he obviously saw not a lot of first grade in the short term, at least at the Eels, with long-term contracts to Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses. Opportunity at the Raiders, who really don't have a recognized when they've got the guy that was at the Gold Coast, whose name is just escaping me. Fogarty,
Fogarty, yes.
decent player,
Yep.
but you need a 6 and a 7. Um, it's a pity they can't go with Sanders this year, but as we said, KO weeks. Um, he's always going to be KO Sports to me.
Yeah, I like
He
that.
might fill in there, maybe at the 6. He did get a couple of chances at Manly, and he was talked about as this boom young player, but couldn't cement a first grade spot. I think he had some issues in defence. He's certainly got attacking skill, but no, we'll certainly see him in the NRL for the Raiders.
Yeah, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on, and it's one thing that we're going to see, obviously, over the off season, even through the season. It almost seems to be that it doesn't matter what time of year it is. There's always signings happening. So definitely something to keep an eye on there with all the signing news that's going on. I suppose the other thing we've got to talk about, Griffo, there's been some footy also being played over
As
the recent weeks. We are right in the thick of the Pacific Championships, and as we know, there's been the female and the male versions of the game happening over the past few weeks, and it really comes down to this weekend where we've got the Pacific Cup final between the Kangaroos and the Kiwis, and then we also have the Pacific Bowl, which is almost like the Tier 2 Pacific
yeah,
Championship tournament with Fiji and Papua New Guinea.
yeah.
Just first of
I've got a
all,
theory on that, Graham.
oh, here we go. Yeah,
Yeah, you drink from the cup, and after you've had a drink, you visit the bowl. That's why it's tier 2.
yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, lucky that for us, we're Australian and we're drinking from the cup. But before we get too far into the game that we've got on the weekend here, with a few players obviously coming back into the side with Haas, Cobo, and Big Tino coming back in after not being in the side for the last game. I think it would be Flegler, Trebojevic.
Yeah, Flegler's in the 19. Jake
He's in the 19.
Trebojevic drops out of
Yeah.
listings,
So
which I think was to be expected.
yeah. Yeah, so a few little changes there because we saw these teams play last week. I mean, just your thoughts, I suppose, in general, in specific the Kangaroos, because this Kangaroos side, I suppose it shows how much quality is in the NRL competition at the moment, where you've got players the likes of Nathan Cleary unavailable, and yeah, there's still some quality. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not as though you consider Daly Cherry Evans a backup halfback. There's just so much talent there to pick from. Just your thoughts, because there are some people who early on thought, how would Dylan Edwards go on the wing? Obviously well deserved, and also some of those other players that have come in and done a good job. I mean, Thomas Flegler coming in the other night and playing a game. We've seen Cameron Murray, I suppose we could technically call a record try scorer, having scored a try in his last 6 games for the Kangaroos. There's been some really good footy, especially this time of year, given the fatigue throughout the season that some of these players will be experiencing.
Yeah, I've tuned into the cup games, which is the mix of Kangaroos, Kiwis, and Toa Samoa. Obviously, the Samoans sort of got smacked in both games. And then we saw. Well, I actually thought the Kiwis would win last week. When I looked at the two teams, but I was impressed by the Kangaroos. And they did rest Big Tino and Payne Haas, who were absolutely outstanding in that game against Samoa, the opening game of the tournament. And they also rested Liam Martin. So those 3 guys, they come in to strengthen a team that was pretty much last week the best Kiwi team they could field from the guys they had in the squad. It was interesting that Coach Maguire didn't rest any of those players for what essentially was a dead rubber game. And they got beat by not the best Kangaroos team. There were some great performances from the guys in green and gold. A bit later, when we have the grab, I might to talk about one of those guys in particular. But they're a team that has gelled really well. In the short time they've been together. Now, a few guys in this team last year were wearing the colours of another nation. So the Hammer was in blue and white of Samoa. Katoni Staggs was in the red and white of the Tongan team. Most of the other guys were on that World Cup tour. Dylan Edwards was not, so he was new to this squad. But pretty much all the other guys who were in the 17 were over in England as part of that World Cup winning squad. So they do have a little bit of experience together. Obviously, as you mentioned, Daly Cherry Evans has filled very well the number 7 jersey. I don't think Nathan Cleary actually wore the number 7 last year. They were all over the place with their jersey numbers, but he established himself as the premier halfback. But Daly Cherry Evans, he's been fantastic for the Sea Eagles, for Queensland, and of course, again, for his country. He's never let his country down, Cherry Evans. Cam Murray playing in the 11 has been outstanding. You're a Rabbitoh man through and through, Graham. Do you think there's something in that for your team that wears green and red?
Having him in on the edge.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's something to be looked at, and I think he's going to play there more and more possibly this season. We saw it a little bit last season, and I feel like the emergence of Tallis Duncan might...
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to, yeah.
Yeah, the emergence of Tallis Duncan as a lock might put him on the edge there, and it's not... And, I don't want people to think, we're taking anything away from Cam Murray's ability at lock. It's just... he has the ability to play lock and second row, whereas some people might be specialist in the middle.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be part of a forward rotation. I think that he'll play some parts in the middle, and then I think he'll play some parts of games on the edge to accommodate when Tallis Duncan's on the field, because
I think it helps his longevity.
I think so too. I think you're right too, because you look at the speed and the intensity with which he plays the game. That's one thing I worry about with Cam Murray, because also too, we know he's got a bit of a history with head injuries, and whilst we've heard his name around football for a number of years now, we've got to remember this is a young man who's only 25 years of age.
Yeah.
You know,
Feels like he's 25. Like, seems like
not only a lot of football left in him, but a lot of life.
Yeah.
You know, to live, and you know, he's got a a young fella. I don't know if he's.
I think he has a
child.
Recently,
I remember seeing some news surrounding that. So I think it's something to be thought about. I mean, obviously, that's our sitting there thinking, okay, what's going to be best for the team in their attack. But I think as an individual and looking at the welfare of players, it's something that's got to be taken into account, and playing on the edge, not necessarily for a whole game, but playing on the edge may be an option, because the other thing I think too, which may impact upon this, it's a bit of a domino effect at South Sydney. I mentioned that with props, they're probably, maybe a prop or so short, and with the re-signing of Jai Arrow, it shows that they've got a lot of, he's going to be a part of that forward pack for a long time going forward. I think we're going to see Jai Arrow a little bit more in the middle. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jai Arrow wearing the number 8 on the team sheets quite regularly. So, with Jai Arrow at number 8, Kaloa Matangi, the other back rower there, they could be looking at an option. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to Kaloa Matangi, Cam Murray back row with Tallis Duncan in at lock and have part of that forward rotation.
Those 3 names.
Yeah, it's not a bad back row, is it? And it was always one of those things. And then, off the bench, then you can have your hit out between your players like your Jacob Hosts and so on and so forth for those other spots. But he's the type of footballer. What this is showing us is, I think a lot of times we talk about what Cam Murray can do and how he can influence the team. I think it just shows when you surround him with other great footballers, it's a minor detail. Sometimes whether he's in the middle or on the edge, he'll do the job for you. He's such a talented footballer. So I think the key thing that has been shown in the last couple of weeks is when you get some really top quality halves and some options outside of him, defenses have to make decisions, and he's got the ability to tear you to shreds or take the line on and make a good 12 or so metres for his team. Yeah. So I think there's definitely something to be said there.
Yeah, it's a good side. Forwards really outstanding. If you look at Haas and Tino up front, Maury and Liam Martin in the second row with Isaiah.
How's that? And then back row.
You bring on Lindsay Collins, Pat Carrigan, Ruben Cotter, and the guile of Harry Grant. That's pretty awesome.
I feel like this is going to be one of those teams, and I didn't think about it too much, so it just hit me then. A couple of weeks ago, they had on Fox League, they were showing some old games, and anyway, there was ones from the early 2000s and so on and so forth, and then you're looking at it, and it's always you go, oh, who was in the side? And they show the team before I run out, and you're thinking, oh, geez, look at that side, look at all those names. I have a feeling this is one of those things in 5 or 6 years, we could be looking back at this and going through this side that we've got now and going, wow, look at all the talent in this team. And then someone will be sitting there with you having a beer going, yeah, and don't forget, that was the year that, Penrith won the 3rd in a row and Cleary didn't play and all this sort of stuff. There's just so much talent around at the moment. And
well, just on that, Graham, and I thought, who are they missing? And Nathan Cleary obviously comes straight to mind, but then the couple of forgotten guys who are pretty handy, Latrell Mitchell and Tommy
Yep.
Turbo
Yep.
Trebojevic. They'd be in there somewhere. So and it's a really good side. Don't get me wrong, but um, probably it's in the back line where perhaps they're not quite at full capacity, but still pretty awesome team.
Unbelievable team. And we saw in last week's game when they did play the Kiwis, I never. I mean, I suppose the Kiwis were in there, but it was one of those things where the Kangaroos sort of kicked on. We saw a really good try. I wanted to talk about it, and I didn't know if you were going to have a Griffo's grab this week or whether we were
I
going to
do have a
do it.
grab.
We might as well do it because I don't know if we're going to talk about any similar moments here. So I might hit the music now while we're talking about the footy and see what you've got. Which moment did you pick out?
Okay, I'm just going to rewind a week previous for a slightly different grab. In fact, it's you probably couldn't grab this, and that was Joey Manu running around without a jersey on.
Yes.
So
The old
it's
shirts versus skins game.
yeah, it was quite amusing actually.
It's almost a
He got
Graham's gaff.
involved. He had his shorts on. It was just like a guy's run out from the crowd, all bare chested because no jersey, and he got involved in a try. Now I don't know if that's legal or not to be on the field not wearing a jersey. I've never
Yeah.
seen it before. I mean, I've seen guys lose their jersey, but they don't get involved in the play. So he would have been tough to grab. Um, but anyway, that's just a by the by. The real grab this week, I've got a feeling you have a slightly different version of what I'm going to go with. I'm going with the hammer.
Yep.
Now, um, the other thing that you're going to talk about shortly was sort of sublime rugby league, and I'll let you talk about that in a moment. But I just want to talk about a guy who uh, he may well be the most exciting player in the NRL. Hamiso Tabuai Fido. I might be wrong, but very early when in the history of the grab, um, he got, I think, one of the very earliest grabs. Now he's still only a young guy. I think he's only about 22. He might have made his debut when he was like 18, 19. Cowboys supporters must be absolutely shaking their head that this guy is playing for the Dolphins. But be that as it may, we saw him again at his best last week, where he ended up with a ball that had sort of bounced from a bomb. He drew three guys in, sort of threw an overhead basketball pass inside, and the Kangaroos went over. I think it was Lindsay Collins was the recipient of that pass.
Yep.
In the second half, he did a massive job on Joey Manu. He just went around Manu and presented Dylan Edwards with his first international try.
Yep.
The hammer is the guy who broke the hearts of the Blues in Adelaide when it looked like the Maroons were gone. Give the ball to Hammer. He beats about three, and New South Wales supporters, including myself, were shattered. This man has amazing speed, skill. He's good in the air. He's actually taller than what I thought. An excitement machine. And all the talk about the Dolphins not having a marquee guy, they have, and his name is Hammer. He is just a delight to watch, except when he's wearing maroon, because he makes me want to cry every time. Like
Yeah.
he's just unbelievable, the hammer. Um,
Such
he's
an
one of the
athlete.
reasons why people love rugby league. He is an
Yep.
absolute athlete. You're right, Graham.
Athlete,
But he's not just
excitement.
that. He's got skill as well.
Yeah.
He's a surprisingly good defender. Um, you think these guys who are a little bit leaner and game built on speed, they're maybe not going to be so good in defense, but you don't miss too many. Um, but yeah, so he got my eye last week, but there was another moment of absolute magic that you can tell us about, Graham.
I think you're alluding to the. Well, I was talking about the Val Holmes try.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's
I
what.
wasn't even thinking about that one either. There was
Oh,
another one. Oh, tell
I
us
was
about that one.
the one that I was actually thinking first of all, and I wanted to talk about because the the beauty of the Valentine Holmes try was not only just the follow through and the put down. What I really loved and what I love about this Kangaroos side is we see certain players where throughout the years for their clubs, people might say, "Oh, Tedesco, we wouldn't, necessarily talk about him for his kicking game." And when they come together around these great players and they play in this Kangaroo system, and a lot of credit's got to go to Mal Meninga, who I think's
Oh,
now
absolutely. He put them together.
12, 12 from 12 on home soil. He's got a really good
Yeah.
record with them. That first try, because obviously, the start was quite poor with the kick out on the full from the Kiwis, but then that first try, just Tedesco moving at the line, perfectly weighted grubber, and Valentine Holmes coming through. That for me, that try was just a phenomenal team try, which I think highlighted just how good James Tedesco is. And I think sometimes people want to try and um, deter away from his skill and just how much of a great player he is. And I just thought that was a really, really great try to show his versatility and just how, for the Kangaroos at the moment, everything just seems to be going right.
Yep. Credit to Teddy, credit to Val Holmes. I mean, Val Holmes, a lot of people were saying he should not be in this squad. He hadn't played for months. Um, and that was his first game back last week. And it was if he nothing, it was if he's just come out of an Origin series. He was on point, Val Holmes, back to his best. Um, for a lot of people, Teddy would have been the fourth choice fullback after Ponga, Walsh, Edwards. Um, and Mal, to his credit, he builds everything on loyalty. And
Yeah.
and he did it with Queensland and he's doing it with Australia. And it's well documented that he may not be the technical genius that many coaches are. Wayne Bennett probably is not a technical genius, but he gets the best out of humans. And I think Mal is along a similar line in that he's the man what's the man manager,
Yeah.
um, and the tactics and whatnot he leaves to guys like Adrian Lamb and Michael Hagan, um, who were also, well, certainly Mike Hagan, part of his Queensland coaching squad during those horrible years when we couldn't win a series. So credit where it's due. In saying that, they haven't won the cup yet, so
True.
yeah. But did you see the Harker and the
Yes.
standoff? I'm sort of thinking, is something going to happen here, or we're going to get a game of footy? But apparently, none of that was pre-planned. It just sort of evolved, and it was quite interesting. Um,
With the
uh,
face off, with the
yeah,
the face to face,
yeah,
and I'll tell you, it's obviously one of those things where, yeah, as you said, whether it was talked about or whatever, but they were all very, very serious face. The Australians, it was good. It was a good balance of respect and also rivalry. I think it
yeah.
was, yeah. I think they got that balance right there with the reply to the New Zealand Harker, which I think is an absolute I think it's a phenomenal part
Yeah, it's a great
of
part
the international
of
sport.
any sport involving New Zealand. I
Yeah.
don't think the cricketers do it, um, but yeah, I still think back. Why don't we see Komite anymore? That sort of faded away. That was the one that you'd see
Yeah,
for
you'd always
years
see
through the
yeah,
70s,
that one.
80s, 90s, into the
Yeah.
noughties. And then that one doesn't seem to exist anymore. But I mean, it's all good. But I'd like to see a bit of commentary, and then you can go off in whatever direction you want. But yeah, the it all adds to the spectacle. Um, and it's not just. I mean, people focus on that. Essentially, it's well, Jack Gibson used to say, New Zealand is going to do a little bit of a dance, and um, but yeah, but
Sounds
it's
like
a
a
really
gibbo.
oh, I don't know about that, but that's what
Reminds me of
yeah,
the 12th man.
yeah, I think
Uh,
yeah, yeah. But Jack did say that at some stage, that when he used to commentate for Nine, he didn't say a lot. But that was but yeah, it's a great part of the sport, as it is in other sports as well. Yeah, whether we I ever see us, apparently the Australians did have some sort of thing that they did back in the 60s when I think they were on a kangaroo tour to the UK. Um, Probably not quite of the same effectiveness as the haka, but yeah, we'll see that. It'd be interesting to see how it goes this week. There'll be some different eyes focusing on the Kiwis with Big Tino and Liam Martin
yes.
and Payne Haas.
Some real
Um,
enforcers there.
yeah, James Fisher Harris. He's a scary man. Like
Uh,
when
it, I was
he's
I was even thinking that watching it the other day. There's at the end of no, I think it might have even been during the national anthem because I remember him standing there and he had his eyes closed and he was yeah, very very patriotic. And they just had this shot of him on the TV, and I was just thinking, the arms on that bloke, like
yeah,
just the pure physique, the strength, he is an absolute machine. That bloke, and
yeah.
I think he is one of the, well, he's their captain, but he is
He
just
leads by example.
yes, that's basically what I was getting at. He is the player who. He'll do his talking on the field. If New Zealand need a lift, rather than him yelling out, "Come on, boys," he'll take the ball and run 10, or he'll put a big shot on. He's that type of player. He's he's invaluable to any team he's in.
I remember Graham when he first sort of broke through. He'd been in the Penrith system in the juniors for a little while. And when he first came on the scene, he was a second rower, and all the talk was like this guy is the new Gordon Tallis, um,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
and he had a lot to live up to, but he's definitely not let anyone down with their sort of expectations. He is an absolute scary man who you want on your team. He's nowhere near the biggest guy in the NRL. Um, when you look at Payne Haas and Big Tino, they will tower over James Fisher Harris. He's not a lot over 100 kegs. I think about 40 of those kegs are in his biceps, but um,
I
but
believe it.
he's a guy you want on your team. And
Yep.
and not to leave out Moses Leota. They're a double act, and they're very, very effective.
They've been very effective, and this is one of those things too, where, like you said, looking back to last week's game, um, a lot of people going into the game really fancied the Kiwis as possible victors in that game. Um, Obviously, we've seen in the past. I think a lot of people say, "No, Kangaroos won last week; they should win this week." Doesn't always work that
Does
simply.
not. You're absolutely right, Graham.
I just want to get your thoughts too. I mean, we've talked a bit about some of the players in the Kangaroos side. The skill and the talent. We talked about. I talked about Tedesco there. We know that the hammer. Just wondering from the Kiwi side, if we're talking about skill and a game breaker, I feel like we're talking about Joey Manu. I think for them, he's the player that can.
He has to be the
Um,
player, Graham.
yeah,
He
yeah,
is he's an outstanding rugby league player, Joey Manu. For the Kiwis to win, he has to play close to a man of the match performance. They got two very good halves in Jerome Hughes, who I think is outstanding, and the very talented Dylan Brown. They got at the back the very good Nick Clockall-Sharnstadt, who these days plays for the Warriors. I rate him highly, but the guy that is going to be the difference between winning and losing is Joseph Manu, who is listed as a centre. He does play a bit of a roving commission.
yeah.
You want the ball in that guy's hands, um, and yeah, he's been reasonably good, but he hasn't been at his best. Um, he's probably very good against Samoans, but I can't recall too many parts of the game last week where he troubled the Australians too much. He put on a few fens,
Yeah,
but they will need him to have a bigger influence on the game if they're going to win it.
and I think that's the thing too. I think that coming up against a team like Australia with the defence they have, it's much harder for him to break into the game. So I think that's where it's more important too for some of these other players in the squad to draw some attention for him, especially those other players, close to the edge like your Nakora and your Papali'i, to just try and create a little bit of space for him after some work up the middle from the likes of Fisher Harris through that middle. Because the one thing we do notice in these international games, I just feel like with these two sides, we've got some. When you look at the NRL, you go, oh, there's one really big player there. There's a big bloke there. I feel like when it comes to these sides, I mean, with the likes of Fisher Harris, as you said, Leota, Papali, even
Bill
Tarpanay.
Tarpany,
You got
they're
Asafa
quality.
Salamona. There's a big side. There's some big boppers here, and I know that Australia's got their own in the likes of your Collins, Tino, and Payne Haas. But I just really feel like there's some size in this Kiwis team, and I think the key for them is going to be holding the ball, controlling the game a bit, so that these big boppers have some gas left in the tank to open it up for the outside backs. Because I feel as though if they're turning over too much ball, I think the Kangaroos will just have too much gas in the tank, and they might make them pay, especially later on in the game, like we saw last week.
Yeah, just going through. I've just got the teams up now. The forward pack of Fisher Harris, Kieran Foran's been good at hooker. Leota, Isaiah Papali'i, who was arguably the best second rower running around in 2022,
Yeah,
sort of fallen off a cliff since he's gone to the West Tigers. But you don't lose talent. Nicker has been very good in these games and is just a very good player. Tarpany, one of the best forwards in the game. Then they can bring on Big Nelson, Leo Thompson, and Griffin Neame. That's pretty handy.
very much so.
Pretty handy. Um, and I see they've got New Brown as the 14. New Brown named New because every season he seems to have a new club, sometimes two in one season. But he's a bit of a journeyman, but he's a good player, and he is versatile, so he can cover more than nine certainly. The new man, New Brown. I do expect the Kiwis to improve. They were good in the first half, sort of fell away in the second half. To be honest, they weren't that great in the second half, but we know they can do better. I'm looking forward to. Oh, it's actually just
Should be a good game.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock
I'm glad
on
I saw
Saturday.
that.
Yep,
Oh,
I think
I'm
it's
working. I'll be at work.
that's unfortunate.
Wow.
Yeah, because what would that be? Because it's in Hamilton, isn't it?
It's yeah. So it'll be five
So there'd
o'clock
be a
over
five
there.
o'clock local game for those of
My
you
goodness
listening in
me!
New Zealand. So
I was
yeah,
thinking I
keep
wouldn't
that in
go out
mind.
Saturday night. I'd stay home and watch it, but
Game will be done.
I'll,
You can go out and
I'll
celebrate.
have I'll have to come home and watch it from without knowing the result. I can do that. Oh,
Because
well,
then
I did not know
then on
it was an afternoon game.
yeah, because the Sunday afternoon 4 o'clock is the Fiji Papua New Guinea game.
I
Um,
don't know that I'll be watching that one, but one
yeah,
never
that,
knows.
this one's more sort of one of those ones. I think the Fiji and PNG game where if you're looking at some of the the players that are in the NRL, there are quite a few players here. So I think a lot of fans might be interested to see players that represent their team week in week out
Yeah,
and see how they go. And some of the younger players coming through. I mean, it's almost like with their fullback matchup I was looking at here. I saw Buller and Alex Johnson. It's almost as though you've got one of the most experienced players in the NRL coming up against an exciting youngster. But yeah, definitely worth a look if you're looking for some sport on Sunday afternoon. Definitely some NRL
yeah.
plays there.
I'm yeah, a little disappointed that the particularly the Fijians. I know they had a big win last week, but when a Fiji side is not running out the likes of Api Korisau and Viliami Kikau, um, Sua Wong who's over playing with Tonga again, a change of jersey from last year, which I sort of irks me somewhat. But yeah, a full strength Fiji side is a really good outfit. And they, with the side that they had last week, they had a big win over the Kumals. I didn't see that game, but the Kumals have got a good sprinkling of NRL talent in their side, and they'll certainly be looking to bounce back. Sunia Taruva missed the game last week, but he's back for the Barty, so it might be the Barty party again this week.
Well, if the Barty party is to kick off, we have a Carpool Rugby League favourite contender here, Griffo. I
He's
don't know if
back.
you've seen it. Number
Oh,
16 for the Fiji Barty is Gordon Whippy, or as those that want to be more polite to
Mister
young Gordon, he is Mr. Whippy.
Mister Whippy.
So Mr. Whippy, Gordon Whippy, he's a prop. I think he plays in the Queensland Cup for the Ipswich Jets. I just thought that was too good not to let pass. And I had
That's
it in my
great.
head, and I wanted to say it, and you were talking about the sprinkling of talent, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, they got the
There's a
sprinkles
bit
for
sprinkling
Mr. Whippy
on the ice cream.
on the ice cream. So, yeah, there you go. We've got
Oh, I
Gordon
didn't notice
Whippy,
that. Thanks for
Carpool
pointing
Rugby
that out.
League favourite.
When we at
Hopefully,
some stage during the summer when we
he's
pick
got to
our
be there.
carpool favourites, he's got to be in the
Yep,
side.
he's got to be
Uh,
there. That's a great
he's
name,
at least
Mr. Whippy.
providing some dessert after
Yep,
the game. So, and
yep,
one of the old favourites from a few years ago who sort of disappeared. They're laying out the red carpet for the king. He's back in the number 10, King Vuniyayawa,
there
a
we go.
former
We've got the
Warriors
king.
player. I
Yep,
think the king he's been over in England with other royals,
yep.
not Prince Harry, of course, but the king he's trying to restore some regal presence in rugby league, and he's doing that in the Fijian side.
Yep.
I'm just looking for.
Jake,
Oh, there is number 18. Cannot
Jacob
make the
Alick.
side. Jacob Alick.
Alick,
How's he
another
not
one.
making the
Yep.
side?
Well, he might make our side.
He makes our side for sure.
Definitely does. So there's a
Him
few
and
in
he'd
here.
go well with Mr. Whippy, wouldn't he?
Yep, Mr. Jacob. Yeah, I just want to see. I just want to see someone say that yeah, a lick creams whippy or something like that. That'd be a great piece of commentary.
Uh,
That'd be one for the Schweppes Classic commentary competition.
this is
So
great stuff. You can't make this up.
you cannot.
You cannot
So
make it up.
yeah, there's plenty to look at there. The Come a Chameleon, number 8. He's the prop
Is
and
he the
captain
captain?
for the
Captain, yeah.
he's the
Big
captain. Yep.
Tui.
So look, plenty of
What
favourites
about the
there to keep an eye on.
13? What's he doing there?
DeBellin.
Tane Milne. He's
Oh,
in
there
the,
we go. I did see that. Yeah, with the different
they've got him in they've got him in the
the
second
second
row, even though
row.
he's wearing 13.
So there must have been
Um,
an. Oh no, they've had a drop
they're
to the
missing a
bench. There
few
we
back
go.
rowers, obviously, with the likes of Viliami Kikau and
Yep.
Siwa Wong not available for whatever
Yep.
reason.
I thought, geez, you're being a bit harsh on Jack DeBellin there, but no, Tane Milne there, second row.
Yeah,
Yep.
Tane Milne in the
Yep.
second row, well known for Rabbitohs fans and for various reasons. Some
Spending,
supporters and some probably thinking, why is he out there again? But
spending more time in the
in the
bin.
bin, yep.
Yep.
But
So
he's representing his. Look, he's not a bad player, but too much time either suspended or in the sin
yes.
bin.
Yep. Needs to get out of his game. Just one thing too, just while I see Alex Johnston's name there, I'll tell you one thing I did pick up from my young fella a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure if we've mentioned this on the podcast or if you're aware, but Alex Johnston's actually written a book. So
I
I
think you
don't
might have
know.
mentioned it at some stage, Graham.
Yeah, so it's called A Footy Tale, and basically it's a nice book. It's a really good book, and I hope he does well out of it. I could relate to it as well because it's about this underdog team of bunnies who every
All right.
week are up against stronger teams and really struggle. And the main it's about inclusion in the book. So the main theme of the book is because they're always coming up against these tough teams like Panthers and Tigers and so on. So
Well, that's fiction then.
yeah,
It
when I say Tigers,
seems
yes,
like Tigers.
yes. So there's he gets some help from some other animals to join the team, some more fierce animals, and some of his teammates that he gets to jump on board. Some very similar names to what you'd imagine. There's one called Cody, one called Trell. So no, it's a good book about how these other animals come together to play with the bunnies, and they include them, and they work together, and they eventually get the job done. But Footy Tale by Alex Johnston. It's a good read. It's a good. It's great to see him involved in something like this, and good on
absolutely.
him. I
Yeah.
think it's great,
Yeah.
and I think. It was actually funny because obviously in our household there's a lot of talk about what's going on at South Sydney and so on and so forth. And my wife and I brought the book. We brought it home. We read it to my son, who's he's a year and a half, and we're trying to we're slowly in the brainwashing
Indoctrinated.
phase of him
Yeah.
becoming a rugby league fan and a Rabbitoh. And we were talking about Alex Johnston, and we said for all the players that have been in the NRL, and even some of the ones that are in and around South Sydney, especially at the moment, he's one of the good guys. That was as well we were talking about. We said, gee, he's just a really good role model for young people that want to get into rugby league, and I think he is someone that because he is such a positive role model and he is such a he seems to be a genuine good guy. He may not necessarily get talked about as much. So I thought this was a good opportunity to mention the book and to mention Alex Johnston and obviously all the positive things he's doing, not only in the world as an author, on the field as a footballer, but also to just in community and so on and so forth, and
Good on him. Yeah.
possibly
I
will
think
become the greatest try scorer ever. Well, let's still watch this
he will.
space. Yeah.
It's barring injury. He will. He scores plenty of tries. I think the esteem that guy's held by the Rabbitohs fans is the fact that a few years ago they looked like they were going to let him go, and there was petitions and whatnot from fans.
Yep.
saying,
Yeah, that
"We've
was
got to keep
right.
this
He
guy."
was linked with the Cowboys. I remember that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fans don't do that for everyone. he's held in the highest esteem. Local junior, um, as you say, there's never any fuss about this guy. There's never any controversy. He
Yep.
just gets the job done in a humble manner, and that endears him to supporters of all teams. Even if you're not a South supporter,
Yep.
um, you can't but like this guy. So good luck to him.
Definitely. And that actually makes me think we should have something. We could have a segment one day where we talk about the best books written by rugby league players, because there's a lot of actually a lot of books out there. Remember back on the day at the footy show, they used to give Mario Fennick a fair bit about his
Yeah, yeah,
his book. I remember that, but
yeah.
yeah, it just makes me think too. There have actually been quite a few rugby league players writing biographies and so on and so forth. But yeah, not sure if any prior have done a children's book. So I thought that was definitely great to talk about, and definitely one of those one of those positive news stories in the NRL. So look, really, we've got the big game on Saturday. Just before we, move on away from this week's rugby league, I'm assuming we're thinking the Kangaroos would get the job done again this week.
I expect so.
Yeah.
But Kiwis in the past are notorious for winning games that they're not really expected to win, and after last week's sort of significant defeat, I don't think too many are expecting them to come out and beat what most people believe is an even stronger Kangaroos team with Tino, Haas, and Liam Martin back into the starting lineup.
Yeah. And as always, when we talk about rugby league here on Carpool Rugby League, it's not only the men's game we talk about. We've also had the Pacific Championships for the women, and we saw on what would have been Saturday the Kiwi Ferns get up against the Jillaroos. I'm not sure if you caught much of this one or heard
I saw
much
most of
about
it,
the
Graham. I was flicking between that and the cricket.
Yep.
At the time, I think Davey Warner and Matthew Head were sort of providing some great entertainment. So I was sort of flicking between the two. Um, the Jillaroos always seem to have that game within their winning, but they were very wasteful, particularly in the first half. They didn't put the points on, and a couple of defensive lapses, and the Kiwis, well, the Kiwi Ferns, I think they are. They ended up winning the game. I think it was 12-6. And you've got to
Yeah,
say
it was.
deservedly so.
Yep.
Their defense was outstanding. The Jillaroos had a lot of ball on the Ferns line and just couldn't break through. You just always thought, oh yeah, they're gonna score, and it just didn't happen. So they'll be a little bit disappointed. It's the first game that the Jillaroos have lost since about 2017, I think they said.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, for the history of female rugby league, virtually the Kiwis were always the dominant team. It's only in recent years that the Jillaroos have become a dominant side, having not lost, as I said, for 6 or 7 years. But so it was a surprise. But on paper, you would have thought that the Jillaroos would get the job done, but they didn't. Did you see the whole game, Graham?
I'm going to be honest with you. I only saw the highlights afterwards. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't catch the game myself, and it was just from what I saw. It was yeah, like you said, it's almost as though the women's game at the international level is built on defence. We always talked about it being hard hitting and intense, and that was like you said, it was a similar thing. I felt like the Jillaroos. It just looked like they were going to get through eventually, and the Kiwis held strong. They had really good defence, and it was a low-scoring game. I think it was 3 tries in the whole game, but a lot of credit to the Kiwi Ferns, considering I think it was the 9th minute when Chapman went over to basically hold them out.
Yeah,
for the
they
rest
didn't
of the
score
game.
after that. Yeah,
It was phenomenal. So Yeah, it was look. It was a good advertisement, I suppose, for the women's game. It was a nice, close game. It was. I think they got a crowd of. I think it was over 10,000 there at Amy Park. So, um, yeah, it's just great to see this time of year and just the conversations we're having. Not be yeah. There was also a women's game. I was like,
Yeah.
it's just part of the rugby league calendar now that when we've got rugby league happening, we also look forward to the women's games as well. So. Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
there's a final or anything, is there? It was just
I think that's it. To be honest with you, I don't think they've got
yeah,
another game.
yeah. So I know they played the first game about 3 weeks ago, the Ferns and the Gillaroos, and then the Ferns played Tonga uh, the previous weekend, and then
Yep.
I don't think there was any plans for the Gillaroos to play against the Tongans, but so no cup or no bowl or plate or anything, just but international football, which is always good to see. So
Yep. Yeah,
um,
and that's the main thing really, just to try and build the international game and the women's game.
yeah,
It's the key there. Yep. So really, I suppose the next thing is we've got the big game this week. Other than that, and the signing news and hoping that there's no injuries, that's probably the big thing. Fingers crossed for no injuries this week. Probably the next big set of news I think that might happen apart from your signings, Griff. I think the big thing for us to look forward to later on this month will be the NRL draw coming out. So
yeah,
I'm sure we'll be back on the airwaves around that time when the draw comes out
yeah.
and if there's
So
anything
late
else
late
happening.
November,
So
I guess, and we can review
yes,
the final of so this week's game, and we might have more news regarding the Las Vegas. I was going to say experiment, but it's not really an experiment. It's the Las Vegas beginning to the season, and it will be for 5 years, as you mentioned. Um, Hopefully, also we'll know more as to whether there will be a World Club Challenge, and
yes,
if so, where? Wigan the Panthers. The Panthers still yet to ever claim that trophy. They've competed a number of times, but never won. So,
yeah, it's an interesting
as
stat,
a
isn't it?
Panthers
Especially
supporter, it's something I
it
would
starts
like
to
to
become
see the
something that you
club
want to
tick
see
off
them
on.
win. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, because they've had a number of shots at it, and they just haven't aimed up for whatever reason. But yeah, I don't think the Panthers is all that keen to get on a plane and fly to the UK. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll know more by the next time we're
Yeah.
on the Carpool Rugby League podcast.
The timing of that I think will also be interesting considering whether they try to marry it up with that Las Vegas week, whether it's
Yeah,
a week
I don't
before.
think that'll happen, Graham. I think they'll be going off before that if it takes place,
Yeah, because
whether
there's
it's
also
here or in England.
yeah, and because you also usually have that the implication now with the season almost coming that week earlier. I remember reading an article a couple of weeks back where they were talking about the Charity Shield match, where they were even
Yeah,
talking about that being changed and effectively saying that it's they're calling it a creamed start to the year that it's going to be quite tight with all the games and so on and so forth. So you've got the
I've
Pacific
got a solution.
Championships, and
I've got a
then
solution, Graham.
don't play trials.
Exactly.
Yep. So
What is the
why are we
purpose that
playing?
they are serving?
Exactly. I think
Because
it's
the
more
other
that
thing
that's
to
what we've
take
always
into,
done, so they keep doing it, which doesn't
yeah,
make it the right thing to do.
but the players must have under the collective bargaining agreement, I think it's 6 weeks
Yep.
complete rest, and they're entitled to it. I'm not disputing that at all. But when you've got a as we've got now, the Pacific Championship, which will end in the first week of November,
November. Yep.
add 6 weeks onto that for those guys, um, then that's taking them really
You're
to
effectively
almost
looking at
Christmas.
and then you've got that time around Christmas. They usually have a week or so there.
Yeah, they do. They
You're
have
really
it.
looking at them coming back after the New Year, and if you're looking
Yeah,
at playing trials in the middle of February, it's
it's
yeah,
counterproductive, I think.
and the
Um,
talk around the Charity Shield too was that the last few years it's been at Mudgee, which has been great for the Mudgee region,
yeah,
but there's been a bit of talk about the timing of it and issues because the word is that South Sydney would have to play the Charity Shield and then fly out the next day
yeah,
to
it's
Las
insane.
Vegas. So the talk is that it will be back in possibly the Sydney region. From what I'm hearing, it's going to be a St George hosting it either at
Yeah.
Cogra or Wollongong. So just to make it a bit more realistic for South Sydney to
Mm.
effectively fly out a day or so after rather than have the trip from Mudgee back to Sydney and then flying out and so on. So that's another thing that we're going
I
to learn a bit
think
more about,
it's
I'd
just
say.
something that becomes part of history, Graham.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's and you know
You
what?
can make it the first game they play, they can play for the charity shield. They can raise the money, but as an NRL game.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know what? I actually have a feeling that as time goes on, we're going to see, and there's more and more football happening. We're going to see less and less players take part in these trials. Typically you have teams have two trials. I know for clubs like South Sydney, it's usually a trial, and it's effectively younger players, and you typically get no first grade players, and then the Charity Shield might have all the big guns named, and then by
Yeah,
half time they've come off.
yeah, they're off.
I,
Yeah,
I have a feeling that we're going to get to a point down the track where if trials do exist, you won't have any first grade players. It's more so going to be, all the second tier players playing, and it could be playing off to see who impresses to get that last spot in a side or something like
yeah,
that. I really feel as though the day of the trial having first rate players might be on the way out. And that's okay.
yeah. I just think it's something that is surplus to needs. I know they tried to jazz it up a little last year, and they had a hundred
Oh,
thousand
that's
dollars,
right.
and we had a
I forgot
trophy
about
or
that.
something. Manly, of course, and
Manly
see
won
there
it.
it is. You'd forgotten.
I forgot that they
You're
did that.
a prominent media
Oh,
figure as the skipper of the Carpool Rugby League team, and you'd forgotten
I,
about
I
the
totally forgot that
pre-season championship, or
existed.
whatever it was called, and it was won by the
Oh,
Manly Warringah Seagulls.
that's right. It meant nothing. It was, but it just shows there that by giving points for games, in a competition that means nothing,
Yeah,
they're trying to. I don't know whether they're trying to increase the value of a trial. I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether it's part of the television rights deal to have
I know.
games.
Yeah,
I don't,
yeah. They did televise them all, but
yeah.
forget it. Just you've got your NRL competition, which in a few years'
I'd
time
rather
will be
two extra
18
weeks of
teams.
NRL.
Exactly. Well, yeah, do the draw so that um, it's better. Work it out better. You start with your round zero in Las Vegas. You play your World Club Championship, whoever is involved. And if you have to play your All Stars, yeah, okay. But that's it. You're
It,
straight into the NRL.
it's funny that you mentioned the possibility and how we got onto it here. I suppose talking about the draw, talking about all this sort of stuff. The 18th team. Like you said there, we're expecting within the next couple of years to have 18 teams in the competition. Not sure if you heard much about the reports coming out of, I think it might have been the Telegraph this week. So obviously, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But the talk around the Bears,
Yeah, I saw an
putting in their
article today.
proposal. Did you
They
see
want
much
to be
about
the
that?
Pacific
The
Bears.
Pacific
I read an
region.
article today.
Yeah.
So they're
So that would encompass Tonga, Samoa, Cook Islands, Fiji, and
talking
part of
about
New
a
Zealand.
pathway. You tell me one team in the NRL that doesn't have at least half a dozen players of Pacific Islander heritage. I'm not finding one.
And
Um,
and also to have youth development locations in these regions. It's not uncommon for a team to have development areas outside of their junior base.
yeah,
You know,
look, for mine, I mean, I don't want to bang on about it, but for mine, Perth should be the 18th team. Um, you're actually expanding the game to a new market. You bring in a new time zone for TV.
yeah, I think you're right.
They should be the team. I know at one stage the Bears were talking about being the Perth Bears. Um, they'll just be the whatever Bears. They just want a
I
bear
I think that's
in
going to be
there.
more likely. I think it might be one of those situations where I think the Bears will end up because in that article I read that they did have this little one line at the end saying the Bears also have considered their fallback option of Perth as a possible
Perth,
base if
yeah,
this
yeah.
was so in other words, here's this idea that's probably not going to happen. Here's this massive article about it, and then at the bottom we'll go, look, what'll probably happen is they'll end up being Perth. So they've made this big beat up to get everyone
Yeah.
talking about this Pacific expansion as the Bears. I look, and I think
At
it's one
one
of those.
stage, they were going to be the new like the country. They were going to go
Yes,
bear hopping through
yeah, they were
rural
going to
and
be.
regional
They were going to
New
represent the
South
whole
Wales
region. Yep.
with a bear in there and a bear as well at another town. I think there's some
Uh,
decent games running around, but
yeah, I
all
think
the talk apparently.
if they want that franchise, I mean, it may be one of those things where, and it may not be a bad option. Go to Perth, you have the Western Australian fan base, and then when they play their
Yeah,
away games in Sydney,
yeah,
you're going to have I guarantee you will have North Sydney Bears fans
yeah.
that will
If
support
yeah,
this
they
team.
will. You look at the AFL, Graham, and I don't know much about the AFL, but what I do know is that still in Melbourne, teams like the Swans
Yep.
have their hardcore South Melbourne Bloods supporters. They've still got a bit of a presence there. And I
Yep.
think maybe the Lions, who are now these days of Brisbane, they're still the old Fitzroy supporters, a little bit of a base. So those who are old enough to remember cling to, even though their team has a name that's different, if the logo is still with them, they're happy with that. And I think certainly old Bears fans would be happy. Apparently, it's a very successful leagues club, Norths, and they're obviously the main bankrollers of all these bids. Um, I've got no problem with the Bears brand being part of a future NRL. I don't like the way they basically, well, it seems that number nine, if we know what position number nine is, it seems they're a bit like that they'll go to anyone um, and be a bear for them. Um, uh, and I'm not talking about the fullback. But be that as it may, it seems as though this political push from the Australian government to basically fund the 18th team to be a PNG team. Um, very wary of investment from China right throughout the Pacific. We can't compete with the Chinese for money. Um, they've got a lot more of it than what we have, but the government believes that it will help promote regional stability um, with a rugby league team in the NRL basically representing PNG. I'm not. I'm for me, Perth is the option, but I'm not opposed to that. But what I find difficult about that is that they talk about them playing their games at Cairns. Now, the last time I looked at a map,
You're the geography teacher.
X, I guess, but not that long out of the game. Cairns was actually in Queensland, and I don't mean it like
That's
the
in
song,
Queensland.
whereas it's actually there. It's not in PNG, so I don't understand quite how saying, well, okay, we're going to have the PNG, whatever they are, whether they're the hunters, whether they're the birds of paradise or whoever they may be, even if they're the bears. Um,
Is it
how
sustainable?
does I don't think so, Graham.
That's the concern. I feel like, and I'd love to see a team that I don't want to make it sound like I'm, but I think realistically, the sustainable, viable option is, look, if it was me tomorrow, I said put a team, create an 18th team, make everyone happy. I'd say the Bears. They're the Perth Bears or the Western Bears, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
We've already got a team called Wests that aren't much good, so maybe we'll go
No.
Perth Bears. I think
Yeah.
Perth might be a way to go. I don't know if they'd try to just call them the Bears, like a dolphin, and just,
I don't think
say
that's
they
going to grab
encompass
grab the
everywhere.
people of Perth if um
The Bears are everywhere. But
yeah.
no, I think yeah, the Perth Bears. I actually don't mind, if it was a brand new franchise, um, going with something new, something, I like a bit of alliteration. I don't mind, the Perth Pirates or something along those
I'm
lines.
for the Pirates, Perth
Yeah,
Pirates sounds good.
Perth Pirates.
But yeah, for me it's Perth. But the reality is it seems that those in power um in rugby league as well as the Australian government are pushing for a PNG team that doesn't actually play in PNG. So I I, I don't
It'd be
understand
great
that.
for PNG. It'd be great for PNG, no doubt. But yeah,
Yeah, but they're not going to play there. So
that's exactly right. Like that I think I read a similar thing where it was yeah, they want a Port Moresby based team to play in Cairns, and you're like, well,
why
do
don't they
they
play
just?
in why don't they play in Port Moresby? What's stopping?
My concern there is that if things don't work out, it just becomes, and they go to prop up the franchise, the NRL comes in and all this sort of stuff. I don't want it to be one of those things where in 10 years' time it's a bit of a failed experiment and they either
Oh,
fold or they become or they become the Cairns Caterpillars or something. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah,
That's the other
I
thing.
think I think it's a it's a short term yeah, I don't see it like
We've done it enough in the past with rugby league where we put teams in without a long term plan and it hasn't worked,
yeah.
or at the wrong times, or with the wrong. I mean, we've been to Perth before. We've been to Adelaide.
Yeah, but
It's
the Perth thing wasn't a failure. That was the thing. It was part of the peace deal
for the
between
the end of the war.
the ARL and the Super League to say, okay, well, we're going to go with however many teams it was, um, when they combined the two leagues. Um, and they said, all right, well, we'll drop Adelaide, we'll drop the Hunter Mariners. Um, I think was that when the Bears actually disappeared. There are a few teams that disappeared at that time. Um,
Yeah,
most of them were from the Super
no.
League.
So Yeah, so there were a few teams that disappeared then because the first combined competition would have been 1998. Now, 1998 NRL season had a million teams. There were,
Yeah,
um,
20, I
I
think.
actually, yeah, and the Adelaide Rams were actually still a part of that. They actually, I think, were,
Oh, no, I think they disappeared.
they played, no, because I know they played
Well, they were
against, I
still
remember
around,
seeing,
were they?
yeah, they had a couple of years. They disappeared when they had the competition. Remember in 2000 when they had the criteria and they went to 14 where Balmain
Yeah,
and West merged, South went out, Manly and the Bears merged for the 2000
yeah.
competition. The Gold Coast went. So
Dragons, and
Adelaide, yeah, they
Steelers.
survived a year or so out of that. But yeah, you had, I think it was a 20 team competition, and that was what really started that push where, as you said, the Western Reds, it would have been.
Yeah,
They were gone as a part of it. I think the Crushers were another team that were gone as a
yeah,
part
they
of
were
it. You mentioned
crushed.
the Hunter Mariners. Obviously Newcastle became the team in Newcastle. That season, actually, to that first combined season, was when they brought in Melbourne. And I
Well, the
have a
Storm were basically an amal, but not officially, but in terms of players, you had guys largely from the Western Reds and oh, Rams. But it was largely Reds, and they might have had some Mariners come in, but it was um, they made the grand final in I think their second year, which was they won the
yeah,
grand
they won
final.
the grand final the second year.
That's
Yeah,
amazing, really, when you think
that's
about it.
mind blowing.
Brand new club,
Yeah, Chris
and
Anderson and
yeah, John Rebo, who was the Mr. Super League, and he took over as the head honcho of the Melbourne Storm, and they were successful
yeah, and
and
then
still are.
yeah, we ended up with and this is the thing. Like I said, the year 2000 NRL season was where we were supposed to have this. Yeah, they had that criteria. They said the ideal amount of teams was 14, and yeah, ended up with a
I think the
Auckland,
Panthers might
Brisbane.
have been team number 14.
It was
It looked like they were going to be perhaps a joint venture, or
yeah,
but
because
somehow the fact that they actually went to Super League was probably what
it
saved them
saved them.
um,
Yeah,
from a financial perspective. Because they didn't attract huge crowds. They weren't overly successful on the field, but they had the financial backing that being in that Super League for that time was probably got them across the line when other teams like the Balmain Tigers might just missed out um, and were forced to merge, and they did go on and win a premiership, and but it hasn't been long term success for that joint venture.
right. And really, coming back to sort of, I suppose, one of the reasons we were talking about this, one of those joint ventures for that year were the Northern Eagles. Um, and it was an amalgamation of Manly and North Sydney, which, within what, 2 years was maybe
Yeah,
3 years was back to Manly, and we saw then North Sydney, no longer a part of
yeah.
top flight rugby league. So they've been looking for, it's been 20 years now that the Bears have been looking to be a part of the NRL in some capacity again. So
Yeah,
that
we've still got their supporters out there.
you look at
I
that
was
game
teaching
against
in a
South in
school
that grand
yesterday.
final. There were a lot of people there supporting them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, um, I had quite a few students talking to me about the Bears yesterday. These are
Yep.
guys who would never have seen the actual Bears in the top flight. But yeah, it was interesting. Um, so there's still and it's I wouldn't say it's a huge um, backing, but it's a significant backing, and getting back, I wouldn't have a problem with the Perth Bears.
No.
I don't know that the Pacific Bears are sort of like the Harlem Globetrotters, really, aren't they? I don't,
They're not.
what are they? What are
Yeah.
they? But anyway,
Definitely a watch this space, and definitely something to keep in mind. As always, there's always plenty to talk about in rugby league, even when there's no NRL itself to talk about. We thank you for joining us this week. We look forward to having you with us throughout the off season as we celebrate what's going on in the international game, and also look forward to 2024. It's not as far away as you think. Before you know it, it'll be Christmas, and then we'll be getting ready for the footy again. Thank you for listening, and thanks, Griffo, for joining us.
thank you, Graham. And we will have some other podcasts through the summer, but a bit sporadic. So if you missed any through the year, they're all there. You can go back and listen.
Try it, listen to the archives, and make sure you subscribe. That way you get the notifications when they drop. Take care.
Bye-bye.